Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be seeing how many pawns it takes to beat one queen. So, in our first example, we only have one pawn, and white starts the game off with king f2. And after queen d2, king f1, queen e3, king e1, black simply slowly moves the king forward until eventually capturing the pawn, and afterwards, on move 10, checkmating the white king. So, one pawn's clearly not enough, so how about we double it to two pawns? White starts the game off with king d1, and after queen d4 and king c1, black slowly starts marching their king over until eventually making it to e4. After king e1, we get queen h5, cutting the king off into a very small area, and after the king moves to f2, we get queen f3, giving white two choices to move here, either e1 or g1. Let's say white goes to e1, then there's simply king d3, and there is no way to stop this checkmate. So, white instead chooses to go to g1, but there's still a checkmate here, just slightly slower. After queen e2, we get king f3, and then eventually queen g2 checkmate. So clearly two pawns is not enough, so how about we double it again to four pawns? This game starts off with d3, and then e3, and as you can see, white is kind of trying to create a shield here, maybe hoping for a draw. And after king e6, queen h4, we get queen h1, and as you can see, black is already kind of infiltrated. They just need to bring the king over so that they can start some sort of checkmate. So after queen g1 and f4, we get queen f2, and black picks up one of the pawns and then picks up another pawn. And after king c5, queen f2, black can pick up another pawn here, but instead they choose to go to d6. And after the king goes to b3 and then plays c3, there's queen d2, and there's no way to stop losing this pawn unless you play check, which is what happens. And after king d5, king a4, we get queen b2, cutting the king off to the side of the board. And after king a5, we get queen b7, the only way to checkmate in 3 here. And after white sacrifices one of the pawns and then plays king a4, it is simply checkmate. So 4 pawns is not enough. What if we double it one more time? This time we have all 8 pawns, so this is the most amount of pawns you can have in a real game. So this game starts off with a4, and after e3, black already picks off one of the pawns. So white plays c3, trying to keep all of the pawns defended and hopefully creating another shield. But after black plays queen a1, black simply picks up another pawn, and now white is down to 6. So after queen g3, we get queen g4, kind of cutting the king off in a way. And after king e7, d3, and then queen h5, white plays g4, just sacrificing a pawn straight up. But black actually takes the h-pawn instead, and after the g-pawn tries to march forward, there's simply queen g1, and black picks up that pawn too. So now we're back to 4 pawns, which we know loses the game, but this time, black picks up one more pawn, and another pawn, and eventually picks up one more pawn, and then cuts the king off to the side of the board, and eventually checkmates. So 8 pawns is not enough, meaning we have to break the rules of chess here. What if we start with 12 pawns? This right here is one of the most interesting ones, actually, because this game is 40 moves, and if you want to here and you don't want to have to deal with the chaos as white here, you can simply play d3, and then after, let's say, any queen move, you have e3, and you can simply just pre-move back and forth. And the reason you can is because everything is defended nicely here. The only thing you have to be careful for is if, like, the queen plays some crazy sacrifice, but that shouldn't happen. So white decides, instead of going for that draw, to push forward for a win, and after g4, queen e5, we get g3 here, and slowly but surely, white is going to push their army of pawns forward, and after queen f6, h4, king g7, d3, queen h6, king d1, king f7, e3, queen b6. We will fast forward a couple moves. White eventually will have this a-pawn right here, and this a-pawn is going to serve as a thing that kind of keeps the queen stuck on this side of the board, because if you ever let the pawn get to a7, and then you also let a b-pawn get to a7, there is no way of stopping a queen promotion. So after queen here, after king d7, we get queen e5, and this is the first time it looks like black has something, because they have a fork between these 2 pawns. There's no way to defend both of them. But after we get f4, we get queen takes b2, and then we get h6, and now white is marching forward on both sides. You can actually take the pawn here, but black actually chooses to play king e7. I don't know why the engine chooses that. Both moves still lose though. Just small spoiler alert there, but anyways, after b5, we get a7, and now this pawn is officially on its last square until it becomes a queen. So we get queen a1 trying to defend, but then there's b6, and after f5, we eventually get this c5 move, and once the pawn gets to c6, it can help the other pawn get to b7 in the future. So black is going to try to stop that by playing queen a4, which threatens to go to c6. But after king f3 and queen e8, white can actually just push the pawn here, and now there is no way to stop this promotion. But before white does that, they play g6 check first, and then they play b7. And yeah, now there's no way to stop the promotion. And once you promote, it's a queen and a bunch of pawns versus a queen. So clearly the queen and a bunch of pawns is going to win. Black tries to not trade off the queens immediately here, but eventually, after a rook promotion, it is actually the best move to simply trade off for the rook here, because if you don't, then there are simply easy checkmate patterns that white can play. So black chooses to take the queen, and after a couple more moves, white eventually wins. So the amount of pawns you need to beat a queen is 12. Now, if you're curious about 11 pawns, I actually did not have enough time to build the game, but according to the eval bar, it is still losing for the white pieces. So I'm 99% sure that 12 pawns is the minimum amount that you need to beat a queen. So if you guys in the comments have any unnecessary battle suggestions, then be sure to comment them down below. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye!